So I'm on the island of Falster, I think it's pronounced. Crossed over from the island of Mun, I think it's pronounced, M-O with a line in it, N, which was, the island that I made onto yesterday, um, which is a bit south from the island which Copenhagen is on, which I think is called Sealand, which is funny. It sounds to me like, that movie with Kevin Costner, I think Waterworld. um, but yeah, I'm on Falster now, and I'm getting pretty close to the bottom, about 20 k's I think away from the tip of the bottom of Falster. So the plan is tomorrow I'll catch the ferry over from Falster over to Germany. So that will be country number 4 of the trip. And yeah, I'll start heading towards Berlin. I've been really indecisive about should I go to Berlin, should I go to Hamburg. On one hand, I have been to Berlin before and I would like to go to somewhere new. Hamburg seems like a cool new place to check out. And the route to get to Hamburg follows more of the coast of Denmark, which could be cool to see more of Denmark. I quite like Denmark so far, but on the other hand, I've been to Berlin before and I really liked it. It's one of my favorite cities I've ever been to, actually, so I would like to go back again. I was told by a German friend of mine that there's a bunch of lakes, which would be really nice to cycle through on the way to Berlin, which is on the route. And thirdly, my friend Joe is in Berlin as well, so I could catch up with him, which would be kind of cool. So yeah, I think I've decided to go to Berlin. I think I've decided, I'm going tomorrow, so I better hurry up and decide. So I've decided I'm going to Berlin. Catching the ferry over sometime, whenever I get there. Should only take about an hour or so to get down to the ferry terminal tomorrow, and then I'll be in a new country, which will be exciting. Although I have been to Germany before, so not as exciting as Denmark or Sweden or Norway, but still, always exciting not going to a new country. Today was a really great day. It was really great. It started off with Maxim and I at the shelter, and unfortunately it didn't start great because my mat had deflated a lot, and that kind of put me in a bad mood already. I had kind of a crappy sleep last night because there was quite a few mosquitoes. I didn't have a tent up. I was just sleeping on my mat in the shelter, so I kept getting bitten by mosquitoes and stuff throughout the night. Which did mean, though, that I woke up quite a few times, including around 4 a.m. and I was able to turn around, just roll onto my back in the shelter, and I could see the sun rising, which was really special, actually. And multiple times throughout the night I looked up and I could see the stars, which was also really cool. I really like sleeping without a tent if I can. But another thing which kind of kept me awake was as I was about to go to sleep last night, I was getting into my sleeping bag and I looked up and there was dozens of quite big spiders on the roof of the shelter, particularly where I had put my mat. So I kind of shuffled it around to try and stop most of the big ones from falling on me while I was asleep. But I got a few things biting me throughout the night. I think there were mosquitoes, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, I woke up and my mat was kind of flat, which made me a bit concerned because I had this issue with my last mat. So I was worried there was maybe a pinprick hole in it somewhere that had happened that night. Searched it over, couldn't find anything. And then when I was looking at it, I saw that I hadn't done up the inflation valve properly, so it had been open all night, which is probably why it deflated. So I'm hoping that was just a stupid thing that I did and I won't have any issues tonight. Fingers crossed. But yeah, Maxim and I had breakfast. Like we continued chatting. Like it was just really easy to talk to him. I think we were quite similar people actually, despite the fact that he was French. Yeah, we're both engineers, both like getting into this bike traveling thing. Had similar ideas on wanting to do impactful and cool jobs and working on environment sustainment kind of stuff. So he was a cool guy. I guess because he was like me. Stupid thing to say. And then, yeah, he left around 9 a.m. I never like really saw him eat anything either, so I don't know how the hell he's surviving. He doesn't actually have a stove. He hasn't had a warm, self-cooked meal in like the 2 weeks he's been biking. So I don't know how he's doing it. I couldn't do it. But yeah, I had like a bowl of muesli, and then since we had the kitchen, I made some eggs as well. So he was like, obviously we're not that similar, two different sides of the spectrum. He left. We said our farewells, and I set off about an hour later, at about 10 o'clock, and just set off into first a bit of rain and then into a massive headwind, which actually continued for the whole day, which was pretty brutal. But there was a few things which made it bearable. I stopped at quite a spectacular beach after about an hour or so of riding, which Maxim had recommended, which is a big tourist attraction. So there was hundreds of people there, including a few people on bikes, which was cool. I even saw like a tandem bike locked up, which had been signed by all these different people. So maybe it was like the people's friends or something before they left. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, there's these massive cliffs heading down to this beach, and the cliffs have been formed over millions of years from like algae deposits, and so they're full of like different fossils, and they've found like dinosaur bones and stuff in there. So that was really cool to see, actually. It was kind of the first time I got off the bike and did some tourist stuff, and it makes me kind of wonder like what else I just rode past without realizing, but that's all right. But yeah, the thing was like you're walking along the beach, and I did a bit of a loop, so I like walked along the top of the cliffs, and then I walked down onto the beach, this big like really steep staircase, and then I walked on the beach for about half an hour, and then at the other end there's another staircase which goes back up the cliff to complete the loop. And as I was walking past people, I realized most of them had their shoes off, and they were wet, and I was like, oh, these people are pretty keen, going for a swim. But then as I continued, I realized, because I stepped and my foot kind of went ankle deep into mud and sand and seawater and algae, that they hadn't taken their shoes off by choice. It was by necessity. So I had to take my shoes off as well. I'd already kind of soaked one of my shoes in my fresh pair of socks that I just put on, one of two, and then went back up to the top and tried to wash all the algae off. I was a bit annoyed at the time, but it wasn't that big of a deal in the end. And then continued on. Massive headwind all day. It was pretty rough, and after a while I saw like maybe a couple of k's up ahead of me there was one lonely person riding. As seems to be typical, everyone seems to be riding the opposite direction to me, but there was one person riding up ahead, and soon enough I overtook them, and I could see from behind it was kind of like an older gentleman, and I wasn't super keen to chat, because I find that these older gentlemen who tour by themselves are usually a bit weird. But I rode past him and I said hi, and he seemed friendly, so we rode together for a little bit and we chatted, and then we actually ended up riding together for a couple of hours, which was pretty cool. We stopped and had lunch at a ferry terminal. He wanted to take a bit of a shortcut to get to the ferry faster, so that he wouldn't miss the next one coming up. And I was just kind of stubborn and stupid and wanted to do the full route along the coast. And yeah, I didn't even realise that I was supposed to be catching the same ferry as him. So we both missed that ferry because he decided to follow me in the end. And yeah, we had lunch at the ferry terminal, and we rode for like another, I don't know, half an hour after that before he eventually turned right to go on a different route. But yeah, it was really cool to hang out with him and chat about life. He's American, but he actually lives in Copenhagen now, and he kind of described the same thing. Like when he arrived in Copenhagen, he just kind of felt at home there and decided to stay. And now he's a Danish citizen, speaks Danish fluently, still had quite a strong American accent. But yeah, quite a nice guy actually. So thanks for hanging out, Phil. And then after that was just another. I mean, there was lots of like really cool forest paths. So yeah, lots of really like nice off-road track through the forest today, actually, which I really enjoyed, and makes me want to get a mountain bike. But yeah, there was a bit more of that after I left, or after Phil left me, and ended up at this little camp, free camp here on the beach, which is cool. So yeah, that was the day really. That was it. Oh yeah, I just before this, when I was having dinner, I listened to the rest of that book, Essentialism, which I enjoyed, but I feel like some of it was just rehashed from other books that I actually had already read. So we was talking about like habit building and how to like rewire your brain to build more effective habits, and I don't know, I feel like the principle of the book, which was to do less better, was a good principle, but could have been said in like a couple of chapters instead of 20. I think he was kind of rambling a little bit and just kind of pulling on stuff that he had read in other cases, which seems to be a theme with non-fiction books I've read the last couple of years. Like people just seem to read a bunch of other non-fiction and then put what they've read from like 20 other books into one book and then call it all of their original ideas, which I think is kind of stupid. And I could do that. I don't think it'd be that hard. So yeah, I liked the idea, but I just felt like the book was a bit too long, I guess. So now I need to find another audiobook. So I'll decide what to do for that tomorrow, I guess. I'm reading another book, this one, which is The Undiscovered Self by C.G. Jung, which is a very famous psychologist or psychoanalyst. This book I actually bought several years ago when I was in Melbourne, when I was actually seeing a psychologist for the first time, and they recommended I read some of Jung's stuff. But I bought this book and then I never read it. So when I was in Adelaide, just before coming here, I kind of grabbed it off the shelf at a whim, and I've been trying to get into it. But yeah, it's pretty dense, and it's kind of like a psychology essay, so it's not light reading. So I might read a bit of it tonight, but yeah, we'll see how we go. But yeah, Germany tomorrow. Yeah, I'm probably a few days away from Berlin, maybe 4 days. I think it's about nearly 400 k's to Berlin after the ferry, so it'll be about just over 2,000 k's at that point of the trip so far, which is a pretty good effort, I think. I'm pretty happy with that. I think the whole trip will end up being more like 6,000, so what's that? I'm about a third of the way, which is pretty cool, but it's going quick actually. Yeah, maybe I'll have to make it a bit longer. We'll see. Thanks.